Good morning and welcome to Motivational Monday here on the Step by Step Listening page. I'm Cheryl Andrews, I'm the founder, and I'm also known as the Strength and Solution Detective. And I love helping you get clarity of what you want, but more importantly, having the confidence to ask for it. Because let's face it, if you've got really big goals, dreams, aspirations, or even if you class them as little ones, maybe your world is just about your family and you being happy and content. Whatever your goals and aspirations are, if you have them and you know what you want, but you don't have the confidence to act on them, you're not doing something, you're not being the thing that you need to be in order to make it happen, then what's the point of them in the first place? So good morning, we've got one person live at the moment with us. Please say hello below. Oh, they've dropped off now, maybe they've lost the signal. Drop me a comment below, that'd be great for me to know who's with me. Today the subject is, where does confidence come from? And I want to talk to you about what I've noticed over the last 10 years coaching within the company Step by Step Listening, but I've been coaching and mentoring people in business since 1996, when I started at Halifax, and I was very quickly put onto a fast track program to be a manager. So I managed people from quite a young age. Before that, actually, I had a full-time job and I was the head of a kitchens, a cafe. So I've always been part of motivating other people, and today I want to share with you some of the simple strategies that or patterns more to the point, of what I've noticed people need in order to first of all gain confidence, but then to maintain it. Now ultimately it's all about feedback. It's about the response that we get from being ourselves. The one thing that will give you feedback, give you confidence, is if you get, however you're behaving, whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking or feeling, if you get a response or a result that tells you it's well received or it's making a difference, then you will stay confident. Okay, so if we call that feedback, and that feedback could come from other people, it could come from yourself, it could be from measuring statistics. So for Mark with his cycling, when he's really confident, he uses things like Strava to measure how far he's gone, how much elevation he's done, how fast was he going. He has his heart rate monitor on as well, so he can see what his heart rate's at. So he can track this time, and then when he looks at it again, the feedback he gets is this improving or not? And his confidence is maintained as long as he can see improvement. So for me, confidence comes about when you want change and you have evidence that change is happening. So when it comes from a communication point of view, if you speak and you get the response that you want, then you've become confident that you've got it. Now, what tends to happen, because we rely on feedback, what can happen when we lose confidence is we start asking other people what we've done wrong, what could we do better? And that's great, as long as you have got the ability to filter it, as long as you've got some of the basic tools in order to filter that feedback, and that it's going to land on a solid foundation that you are enough and everything is okay. So in my 10-step process, what I've come to realize over the years is that people often ask for feedback from other people, and first of all they ask people to tell them what they could do better or what they were doing wrong, just because they've worked out that something didn't work. And that feedback isn't always useful. It just causes a spiraling of impact, because often those people will give you feedback and they'll tell you about things you hadn't even considered were wrong, didn't even think you needed to sort out. So now you know you have a problem, and then you have a number of other problems. And that's not to say that that information isn't valid. It's not to say that it isn't something you should be considering, but it will impact confidence. So the number one thing to maintain confidence is clarity. And if those of you have read my book, Manage Your Critic from Overwhelm to Clarity, you'll know that clarity stands for the 7-step process. And the number one thing for C is curiosity. So your ability to listen to yourself and others without judgment or assumption, to gain understanding of what people want and what do they mean by what they say. Confidence is often lost because you are comparing yourself with other people, but without the full picture. So you might see someone buying a new car on Facebook, for example, and you think, oh, they've got loads of money, but you may not know the full story about how they made that car a reality. They may have not had takeaways or alcohol, or cancelled all their holidays the last 5 years in order to save up for that holiday. They may have been really successful and increased their income and their turnover. something else might have happened in their life. But when we are being curious without asking questions, we're comparing ourselves without curiosity. We often are comparing things that are not like for like. Good morning, Joyce. Thanks for joining me. Love to see you. I'm just talking about confidence today. And so on the C for clarity, the first thing is curiosity, to ask more questions. And then as we go through the clarity process, it's about listening to the language. So are you talking about what you don't do right? Are you telling people what they don't do right? What kind of words are you using? And so confidence can be lost if your language, the way that you speak about yourself and other people, is not really talking about what you do well or what you want. It's talking about what you don't want. And go through the clarity process in more detail. A is about where your attention is. Are you talking about the past, or are you talking about the present or the future? Reflection, it's about, you know, what are you reflecting back to yourself? What's your evidence? What are you collecting as information that tells you you are who you are and what works for you? I is intention, and talks about the drama triangle. So it's thinking about your conversation you're having with yourself. Is it talking about, you know, is it woe is me, victim? You know, it's not going right, it's not fair. Are you persecutor? Are you telling other people that they're wrong, that they shouldn't do it that way, that's not the correct thing to do? Or are you rescuer, where you're trying to please everybody and trying to make everybody happy, but leaving yourself out in the process? And the Y, I miss that T, trust. That comes from knowing your own process, which is a bit more about the confidence we'll talk about today, is that you actually really need to know yourself really well. And the only way I know how to know myself well is to use the clarity process, to ask more questions, to be curious about my language, to be curious about where my attention is. Am I blaming myself or other people? And the more I get to know myself, and the more I know how I do me at my best, and the more I value that part of me, then the why I want to do things becomes a place coming from a place of love rather than fear. So the why is the story you tell yourself. So clarity is really, really important. And for many people, when I work with them, once they understand what they want and they are communicating with themselves and others without fear, you know, it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from, this is what I want and it's good for me and it's good for you. Then often that clears space. That creates an opportunity, if you like, for confidence to grow. So it's not crushed down by fear and self-doubt and concern. So the number one thing for confidence is to have clarity. And for me, that all comes down to the way that you listen and the way you question yourself and the world around you. So number two on the confidence is that when you are working with that clarity, is to make sure at all times you have a clear outcome. So the O in confidence stands for outcome. What is the outcome you want? So a good example of conversation with a client this week, I was talking about an argument that happened, and I asked them what they'd like to have happen, and they've said, I want the other person to admit that they were wrong. So that's not the outcome they want. That's because actually, why do they want that to happen? So it's going back to the why, the story. So I want them to admit they're wrong means that they're actually thinking, that's persecutor, isn't it? It's drama triangle. So you're thinking the other person's wrong. So I asked them, so when they admit they're not wrong, they're wrong, then what happens? And they carry on. And actually what they really want is for everything to be resolved and the family to all be happy. So confidence can be lost if you're trying to find a solution, if you like, to the wrong thing. You're fighting the wrong battle. You're picking on the wrong thing. Your attention is on what's not working rather than the bigger picture. You're in the detail of the stuff that's not going well at the moment, rather than thinking about the big picture. What is it you really want to have happen? And whenever I raise my eyes, I'm human, I have that as well. I get caught up in the bind of everything that's not going well at the time. But it's like really raising the level to think about, what's the big picture in this relationship, in this business, whatever it is you're working on? What's the outcome that you want? Weight loss is a good one as well. People often talk about losing weight, but actually the thing that people want to lose weight for is either they want to look good, feel good, want to live longer, feel healthier. So it's thinking about what you actually want. Weight loss is what you don't want. You don't want to carry the weight, but actually what you do want is to look good and feel great, or be healthier, or overcome something. So thinking about what you actually want, outcome, is really important. Then the needs met, I want to talk about that today. And I want you to think about the one thing that people don't do when they try to set themselves up for confidence, is really think about, you might think about what you want, but what you don't often think about and don't take time to get clarity about, how do you need to be? So for a conversation to go well, for a weight loss journey to work, for fitness to improve, for your business to grow, whatever it is, how do you need to be? What's the attitude, the mindset, the thought process that you need to have in order for you to get the outcome you want? Be curious about it. And another question about needs met is people don't recognize that when we're going to make changes in our life, but we want to maintain confidence, we need to make sure we've got all the support in place. Changing behavior, changing thoughts is not a one-man job. We do require people around us to give us external feedback as well as internal feedback. So I want you to think about now, what kind of resource or support might you need in order to create that change that you want? Now that might be internal, personal resources you give yourself. So maybe it's about keeping a journal. Maybe it's about writing, taking photographs. Maybe it's about accurately recording. So in your business, do you know your numbers? Do you know how much money your business made last week? Do you know how much money you want to make next week? Do you know how much you have to do of any particular product or service? What do you need to sell in order to get the outcome you want? Do you know exactly, if you're on a weight loss journey, do you know exactly what you weighed last week? And do you know how much you want to weigh this week? Fitness. Do you know the figures? So maybe the resources might be a way of recording this information. Confidence can only be maintained if you absolutely know where you are now, where you want to be, and you have a vehicle or a tool or a process to track it. It's why things like Slimming Club, it's why coaching is so valuable, because somebody else is keeping track of those records. They're keeping an eye on what's going on. Good morning, Lorna. Thanks for joining us. So I was on to the needs met. So think about the resources and support you need. Now that support might be encouragement from others. And this is the bit where often it is people, when they need help, they go to people and say, could you, weight loss is a really good example, but they'll say to people, oh, have you seen me eating chocolate? Tell me, stop me. And I can tell you now, if you've got a woman who's PMT or really tired or really irrational, irritable, and she wants chocolate, and her husband says, oh, do you want to be eating that? He's going to get it in the neck. So when you think about support around you, be really clear, what do you need them to catch you doing right? Make sure your support network is not just about catching you doing it wrong, but make sure you've got enough people that go, so that's a really good choice you've just made there. Or, if it's in business, if you can get people to, if you're complaining about something, encourage people around you to ask you to talk about what is working or what has worked in the past. If you're talking about what you don't want, get your support network to say, what would you like to have happen? It might be you give them a couple of questions that they could ask you. So if you say to them, right, if you hear me moaning about something, could you ask me what is working or what has worked? Or if you hear me complain about what I don't have, could you ask me what I'd like to have happen instead? So get support networks to ask you questions that put your attention on either what you want or what is working, or get them to catch you doing it right. So if somebody, client I was working with last week, really finding that they were being very irritable and they were getting frustrated with themselves and other people, and they were flying off the handle, and they really didn't want to. They wanted to be calm, they wanted to be in control, but they're going to need to change that behavior. So he asked his family to actually catch him doing that right. So if they saw him take a deep breath and pause before he responded, he asked them just to do a silent, didn't need to say anything, just a thumbs up, just say, I've noticed that, I've clocked that. Didn't want anything said. So it's another thing, thinking about the support you want from people. What do you need them to say or do, and how do you do it? And sometimes this is a bit of a kind of suck it and see. You get them to do something and then it doesn't work. It really annoys you, or it frustrates you, or it doesn't encourage you. So needs met is a really big component of what we do on the Motivate, Manage, Mentor and the Master Your Critic days. It's really about you thinking, what kind of feedback do you need? What are you sensitive to? What's going to cause you to trigger to be irritable? And what's going to motivate you? What's going to inspire you to keep going with your goals? So that's the N on the confidence. Good morning, Daryl. Lovely to see you this morning. So the next one on the F in confidence is about focus on strengths. Now, those top three, if you get clarity of what you want, you really have it written down what you want is your outcome and it's solution focused. And you get your needs met by making sure that you've owned how you need to be and you've got support to create change. Those 3 steps in confidence often is all that's required. Okay, so I'm going to go through all 10 steps, which spells the word confidence, no surprise. So it's going to take a little while to go through, but please know that if you only do those first 3, magic happens. I've seen it time and time again. If you just start getting people to support you, to catch you doing things right, amazing things happen. Now on the F, focus on strengths, one of the things that you can do is start to pay attention to, there's some evidence out there. David Graves' work was very much about if you get patterns of 6. So if you actually look at how you make a decision, how you manage time, if you're a writer or author, so it's like if you're writing at your best, if you're eating at your best, if you're training at your best, whatever that model is. And actually what you do is you start to look at what is happening when it works for you. So if you can get one model and you go, okay, so what happens when it's working for me? Well, the first thing is this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And it does mean reflecting, and some people call this overanalyzing, overthinking stuff. But this is about getting to know yourself. This is about really understanding how your head ticks and how it works. Really getting to understand, love and trust the way you work. Because once you know how you do it, what you do is you just know that's how your brain's going to work. And it doesn't matter how many times you try and change it. If that's your natural way, you can start to trust it. You can go with it. You can work with that flow instead of keep feeling like you're trying to be something you're not. Because it's not much fun showing up in the world trying to be somebody else. We don't look very attractive. We look a bit awkward. And so actually learning who you are and how you do you is the most important part of it. And focusing on strengths, that's predominantly when people work with me over a period of time to build confidence, the quickest and easiest way we can do that. Daryl's just been attending the Do Delegate or Ditch Mastermind, which is an 8-week course. So it's 8 sessions where we're modeling out what you need to set yourself up for success. That's those 3 we just talked about. And then there's focusing on strengths, and we model out what's happening when you're working at your best on your own. We have to be able to work independently. What's happening when you're learning at your best? We're always learning, we're always growing. Things never stay the same, even if we really wish they would. Part of being human is accepting things are changing and being able to be enthusiastic and to learn how to be okay in that new environment or in that new change. So you really have to understand when you're learning at your best, on your own, individually, on your own, independently, that's like what's happening. And when you're living at your best, that's like what. And the reason I get people to do those 3 models is because the brain's got a really good compartmentalizing system, which is great for getting rid of overwhelm, but not so good for confidence. Because what it does is it puts that bit of success in that box, and that bit of success in that box, and that bit in there, and it doesn't connect the 3 together. And when you do all 3, and you look at all of them, you can start to see the patterns. You can start to see the synergy between those 3 models. And that's when the magic happens. That's when confidence starts to, like your bricks of confidence start to solidify, and the cement around them become like, this is how I do me. And yeah, you might grow and you might have another iteration on the next time you do it. And over the years, I'm always updating my model, because the more I learn about myself, the more I grow and the more effective and the more adaptable I am about working, learning, and living my best. So there was times when I was working my best, I absolutely needed to know what was coming. I needed structure. Whereas now, because I've grown in confidence, I need less and less. I can be more flexible and more adaptable. But that first foundation level is, if you understand your models, then you can make the connection between your strengths. So many people I've coached over the years where they're focusing on their business goals and they're trying to manage a team, or they're trying to organize an event, and they've completely forgotten that they are the queen of parties in their family. Like, they're the one that organizes all the parties. They're the one that gets all the invites out. They coordinate everything. And they've kind of compartmentalized it and not realized they have this massive strength here that they could use at work. Likewise, I've worked with CEOs who run massive corporations who are struggling with a teenager. And when we've gone through the process of how they do appraisals and how they motivate and manage their teams, they realize they spend one-to-one time with them. They have a review system. They have a progress. And they're not using any of that at home. They're not using it to give people good, effective feedback. So they have a process here, but they're forgetting to use it in their home life. So confidence can come when you start really focusing on your strengths. Focus on what works for you, but get more into the detail. How do I do that? What is my first thing I do? What is it? So Jen, good morning to see you. So what is it? What's Jen's way of working at her best? What's Daryl's way of working at best? What's Lorna's, Joyce's? What is it that happens in your world? Because it will be unique for you. Whatever your journey has been in life, it's taught you something, and you will have a practical process that you follow, and it'll be your innate way of doing things. And the more that you become consciously aware of it, one, you can teach it and share it with other people, so you can tell other people what you need to work with them at your best. But the more you know yourself, the confidence starts to solidify. Now, over time, when I've worked with people, we started to be curious about some words. So some of the things that I work on with people, 3 other core skills are: what do you need to work, learn and live at your best in groups? Because we have our introverted part of us that needs to work independently on us, and there's the extrovert part of us, and we've all got a bit of both. Doesn't matter whether you're a really, really introverted person, you will at some point require the stimuli and the interaction of other people and systems outside of you. And even the biggest extroverts out there need to have quiet time. So knowing what you need to work and learn and live a bit your best with a group, and what you need to be doing it independently, those 6 models give you a really solid platform to get to know yourself. So that's another really great way of getting your confidence levels up. And over years I've been doing this program. That's the 6 sort of core models, and then the 6 skills that I came to realize that my clients needed when they had these 6 core skills, when they were able to listen to themselves and others without judgment. So improving your listening skills, so that you stop judging yourself and other people, stop making them right and you wrong, or you wrong and them right. Be curious about how different we all are. So maybe you do work this way, and maybe somebody else works in a different way. And what can happen in an attempt to get confident is we have to make their way wrong so that our way can be right, so that we can maintain our position of strength, if you like, that it's okay for me to be like this. But the real strength comes when you can go, oh, well, you do it that way and I do it this way, and you ask them questions and you get curious about, you know, what works for them. And when you start to get curious about what works for them, if there's little bits of your system that don't work as efficiently as you'd like them, you can start pinching ideas. If you make it a right or wrong, or you know, you try and justify your behavior by shutting down or ignoring what they're doing, you miss an opportunity to learn, you miss an opportunity to grow. So the number 1 skill is listening. So it's no surprise my company's called Step by Step Listening. So we're looking at making sure you listen to yourself and others without judgment and without assumption. To listen, you have to be able to ask questions. And when I started working with clients, some of my clients who've never done any coaching before, and they first come along to this, the fear that comes up when they get asked a question they don't know the answer to is overwhelming. And so many people have come out of the schooling system with, I don't know what they're called, beliefs that every question someone asks you, you should know the answer to. Now, remember, when your teachers asked you questions, they taught you a subject. They've given you information, then you're asking questions afterwards to see how much of that information is stuck and to see whether you've understood the explanation. So in those circumstances, as young children, when we're asked questions, we are asked questions that the other person believes will know the answer to. But we're also asked questions in massive big group environments where often the brain is distracted and we can't hear all the information, and it doesn't work for us to actually remember it. But if you have left the education system, or even your childhood or whatever, with a fear about questions, one, asking them because you don't like, you know, what if I asked them? I had one employer I worked with a few years ago, and I said his pay is, I said, if you ask your staff what they'd like to have happen, he said, no, he said, they're bound to ask me, they're very bound to say they want a pay rise, and I can't give it to them. So he wouldn't ask the question about what they'd like to have happen, because he'd already decided he knew what the answer was, and he'd already decided that he didn't want to give them what they asked for. And so my job was to actually work through helping him to be okay with whatever the answer is, and not feel responsible that he had to make it happen. That by asking questions, he could ask the team, so okay, if you want a pay rise, you know, how do you need to be to get that pay rise, and what would need to be happening in the company for that pay rise to happen, and actually empowering them to understand that the turnover needs to increase in order to give them pay rises. So sometimes with questioning, people don't have the confidence to ask questions, don't have the confidence to even answer questions. And that is going to play a massive big part in your development. If you cannot ask questions of yourself and other people, you're gonna stay in a little box where it's safe because it's familiar, but you're not going to expand. And if you can't expand your knowledge, you can't take away the restrictions. So questioning is really, really important. The third skill was the ability to take feedback or even criticism. So this is where for me, those who know my journey, I was really, really sensitive to criticism. I found, if people criticised me, it just really whammed me, and like sort of being kicked in the stomach with a size 10 boot and a steel toe cap. And I was really, really bad at taking criticism. So it meant that I never got told. I wasn't really, in the end, I stopped listening. So go back to the listening. I didn't really hear what people were saying because I was just trying to protect myself from that pain of being criticised. But what it also meant is I didn't hear when they were praising me. I didn't hear when really there was something I could do. So now what I'm training people to do is actually really listen to what people have got to say. So for example, my coach and mentor set me a task this morning, and I had to put what my financial goals were. And so I was saying I wanted to earn 97,000 this year, and I earned, I'm quite honest with you guys, turnover last year was 21,000. So it's a massive gap. So to get the feedback that actually from her that I cannot achieve that with the rates I charge now and the hours I want to work with my family. So I've increased the number of weeks I'm prepared to work next year. I've increased some of my prices. But in the past, I would have just shut down. I wouldn't have been listening. I wouldn't have been learning because it would have just felt too big and it would be too far away and it wasn't possible. So one of the reasons you have to get to the point where you can take feedback is because when you take feedback, if you can listen without judgment, you can gradually work out the step-by-step process. What's the first thing that needs to happen? What's the second thing that needs to happen? But if you can't take feedback on, there's going to be loads of wise people out there who've got some really good, well-intended feedback for you that you're going to miss. That's going to help you grow, but you're going to be shutting it out. But if you know yourself really well, by the way, and you get to know other people, you will also know which feedback to ignore. So if you know that somebody is got particular core values and you know what's really important to them is really different to what's important to you, you can choose to go, okay, well, I want to make that more important, so I'm going to listen to them to learn about it. Or you can consciously decide that isn't something that matters to me, and therefore that isn't how I operate, and therefore I'm not going to listen to that feedback. And so really being able to work out what feedback to filter is really, really important, which brings me on to skill number 4, which is your decision-making process. You have a logical part and you have an emotional part, and the emotional part people call gut instinct. So some people will make a gut instinct that it feels right, so they're going to make a decision, but logically they can't articulate why. So if you map out how you make decisions and you balance your system so it starts to be more intuitive, so you've got that, you can say yes, it feels right, but logically you can also explain it to other people. Again, when you're listening to feedback, you can make a conscious decision. You'll know whether you're coming from fear or from faith and trust and loving yourself and knowing what works for you, or whether it's like a rejection kind of thing, that you're just saying no because you can't process it. So understanding how you make decisions will help you to know which feedback to listen to and which ones not to. Skill number 5, I think I'm 5, yes, is time. Now, one of the things that most people think, so if you can see now, I started with confidence. We had C, the O, the N, we're on the F. And in the F, we've got all the skill set and training to go through. And yet most people, and I'm now just saying to you, time. Now, most people think time is the problem, but time isn't the problem. Time is only a problem if you have got fear around it, if you believe there's enough time and that this is the right time. If your beliefs around it, you're managing your critic, you have clarity and you know the outcome you want and you've got all your needs met and you know yourself really well, then time is simply a way of managing space, and it's a decision or choice what you do with your time right now. And when you filter it right down, you can get clear plans, and planning is actually the last skill that I work with most of my clients. It's actually understanding what is the one thing that you need to do every day for the next 7 days, to achieve the things that you want to achieve. But the only way I know how to help people really focus on their strengths is by taking time out from the planning process, from thinking, doing, and going forward and going, actually, I'm going to invest time in getting to know myself. Instead of keep trying to move myself forward with the next coaching program, pushing myself forward with the next goal or next thing. So I'm going to just pause for a minute, and I'm going to work through these models, and I'm going to get to know myself better, because then I can be more informed about the decisions I make. So that's the EFIS focus on strengths. Any questions you've got about all this? Hi, Loretta, lovely to see you. Good morning. Any questions you've got, please pop in the box. And just thinking, you know, any light bulb moments, is it making sense? Isn't it? Am I talking too fast? Some hearts or thumbs up, anything just to let me know that it's all landing and it's making sense would be fantastic. The I is interval, which is the only word I could come up with that started with an I to fit in the word confidence. But basically it's about taking a break and being okay with silence. We're just going to take a moment now, and I'm going to be quiet, and I just want you to think about, just notice what's happening for you. Confidence often comes in those moments when we just allow things just to be. When you stop fighting it, when you stop trying to push for it. Have you ever noticed when you've got a problem, you sort of walk, you go and, I don't know, especially if you work from home like me, go and unload the dishwasher or unload the washing machine, or you answer the phone, or you do something different, and then you come back to it and it's all there. So interval, take a break, put the pause button on, be okay with stopping, stop striving forward all the time. Confidence is often something you can assimilate, that can have stickability when you allow yourself to stop pushing, stop going forward, stop, just be here, right now. Can also work is if in this moment you take a moment and you just change position, get a different perspective. By being quiet, you get to hear and see, just notice. I mean, if you could share in the comments, that'd be great. But when we went quiet, then what happens to you? Is it all going on in here, or all the thoughts inside? Do you notice anything here, or is it in your sort of chest and heart area? Is it your stomach that starts flipping? Are your feet itching to go for a walk, get out and go? What is happening? What's your body telling you? Being okay with stopping and silent, having an interval. I see training programs all the time where people are training and teaching people, and they want people to get confident, but they slam so much information at them. They never give anyone time to come up for air. The brain needs time to process. It needs time for things to land. Now, yes, if you have got really good at listening, you're really good at questioning, you're really good at receiving feedback and giving feedback, if you're really good at making decisions, you know your process, you will do things faster. You will be able to manage your time more effectively. You will be able to plan in a way that really works. Get all those core skills. But it doesn't matter how much that you do, if you don't, you still have to have time to stop. The body isn't designed, it's designed to move, and most people aren't moving it physically as much as they need to do, but it's designed to have time to process. People are often not allowing the existing information, new information, to land, to stick, to connect with the data you've already got. So take breaks. That's the most important thing I can give you. Loretta, you notice you took a deep breath, so just notice whereabouts is that breath, and is a relationship between that breath and confidence. So thanks for sharing that. The D is when you've got all that as a foundation in your confidence model. The D is, that's when to start developing solutions. So many people come to me and they want to work out what they want, but they don't know themselves very well. And so they say what they want. This year has been so magical. The sessions I've had with my clients so far this week, or last week, actually, we're on Monday now, aren't we? This week it was really lovely, because the first year they worked with me, like last year, I'd say to them, what would you like to have happen? And they set a goal, and actually those goals and those outcomes were based on what they thought they ought to do, or they've seen other people do. And as they've gone through the program and they've got to know themselves better, this year they've set goals that they really want, that they know that that's going to mean they'll be living at their very best. They know that means they're going to be able to give that to their family. Everything is connected to everything, and emotionally they've bought into their own dreams, their own aspirations. So develop solutions. So you can start with what would you like to happen, which is the outcome that we had on step 2, which is the O on confidence. But actually, when you do the other layers of work and you ask the question again, what would you like to have happen? This time you are asking for what you want. What works for you? What works in your map of the world? What works for your family, your clients, your business, your dreams, your aspirations? And when you can develop a solution with all of that in the background, then you have an outcome that the whole of you, your head, your body, your heart, your soul, everything is bought into. And when everything's bought into it, that's when confidence can be maintained. That's when confidence can be sustained. So I need to think about your outcome right now. Just when you think about it, does the whole of you get excited about it? Or is it just up here intellectual? Or is it even out here? Is it somebody else's goal? I remember for years having a goal of wanting to earn 100,000, all right, for a year. And I've been striving for it and wanting it and wanting it. But I didn't really want it. It was just because that seemed like a big goal. I remember being on a mastermind group and somebody said, I'm going to go for 1 million this year. And somebody else said they were going for 30,000. And I was like, well, I don't want 1 million, and 30,000 is too low. So I picked 100,000, but I didn't really want it. This year, I've got a goal of 97,000. And it is actually made up of all the things that I want to buy for myself and my family. It's the things that were going to make a difference. So Joyce, because you're my mother-in-law and you're on the call today, one of the things we're buying in, we want to buy a bigger car with 4 doors, because I hate seeing you climb in and out of our Mercedes. It's a pain in the neck. And because I'm emotionally driven, I'm driven by my decisions, by my family, and I want everyone to be happy and everything okay. I want to be able to take my whole family out for rides in a car that's comfortable. So we're looking to buy a bigger car that is actually okay for adults in the back. And our 2-door Mercedes at the moment isn't a practical. So the amount that we need to buy that, and I also want to do some stuff around the house because I want it to be more accommodating for social events, etc. I want more people to be able to come in. I'm expanding and changing things around for the retreat so that my working environment's better. Everything that money is allocated for, I have an emotional driver. It helps me to work, learn, and live at my best. I know that when I've got that, I'm going to make a difference to my life, to my family's life, and to my client's life. So that figure now isn't just a random figure. It's a figure that I really want because it's attached to the lives I'm going to change as a result of it. So think about your own goals. You've got lots of thoughts about what you've been saying in that interval. Fab, any particular thought, just grab the first one if you've got it there, Lorna, and we can ask some questions about it. So D is for developing solutions. And when I work with a client, the very first time I work with them, we have to work with what comes out, because we have to have a starting point somewhere. But the more I ask them, so if I ask you guys on the call today, what would you like to have happen? Just pop down below the first thing that comes to mind. What would you like to happen? And then we take each word of that statement and we'll ask what kind of, is there anything else about that? Where does that come from? And you're basically checking out the whole of that outcome to make sure it's your outcome. You'll be surprised how many times we are saying things. And my statement for this year is say what you mean what you say, and don't be mean when you say it. So just write down what you're going for. Why do you want it? Where is it coming from? Is it driven by what's really good for you? Or is it driven by what you think you should be doing, what you ought to be doing? So that's the D for confidence. Now, E is about embed and embrace the learning. Now, I want you to, this is where we can do it together now. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I really would like your responses below. Okay, I'd really like it. It'll give me some feedback. It would boost my confidence. It'll let me know that I haven't spoken for 40 minutes. Something I'm saying is landing and it's making a difference to you. So as a result of what I've said so far today, what do you know now? And what difference does knowing that make, if any? And the reason why we need to impart the confidence is to stop and actually think about, okay, so when something really upsets you or something doesn't go well, the quicker you can learn the lesson from it, the better, okay? So when something goes wrong and I'm cheesed off, I might go, okay, so what do I know now? I know that doesn't work. So what difference does knowing that make? Well, it means I can prevent it from happening again. So that becomes the confidence. It's because the learning is there quickly. So many times we'll make the same mistake over and over and over again, and we'll get people come to me usually when they're sick of a pattern. They're sick of this pattern appearing. But if you don't pay attention to what is actually happening in the moment, so when things go well, ask yourself, what do you know now, and what difference does knowing that make? And by writing it down, speaking out loud to other people, you start to update your system. And the reason this is really important is because confidence is highly dependable on your brain remembering that you are okay and everything is okay. And if you don't update your system with the latest information, when it's trying to help you make decisions, when it's helping you to listen without judgment, it's often going to be running on old data. So a bit like your computers, you need to update it on a regular basis. And the questions about embedding and embracing learning, what do I know now and what difference does knowing that make? That is the thing that kind of goes, okay, let's have another pause now. Let's just update our system. Let's delete the old beliefs, the old rules. Let's get rid of the stuff that isn't helping me. And let's just notice what is helping me. Okay, so doing that doesn't work. What am I going to do about it differently next time? Or that really does work, and I need to remember why that worked and how it worked. So I hope that's there. Loretta, what you know now is be more confident with you want to be more confident with your pony. And what you know is you need to plan and need to take breaks and you need to listen to others. So the question there is, what difference does knowing that make, if any? Because we can say these things, and it's like the more you can question it, goes back to listening question, the more you can question it and the more you can talk it out, and this is why coaching is so powerful. The more you can talk it out, the more it embeds it, the more it helps it stick to your memory. And when it sticks to your memory, that's when your confidence can work. Lauren, you put you'd like to have happen is to consistently do the work I need to do on yourself. I'll come back to you in a minute, Loretta, just seen that. So the thing I'd say to you is you've got to consistently do the work I need to do on myself. And if I was coaching you, I would take the word consistently, work, and myself, and just ask you what kind of consistently is that, what kind of work, and what kind of myself. So I was going back to the developing the solution. Get really, really clear. And also that's kind of doing work. So when you do that work on yourself, then what happens? Because I would want to be really, really clear, is what's that going to give you? What's the outcome you're going to get from that? So going back to the O, really want to be clear, what is the outcome you want to get from that? What is that going to give you? And also when you think about it personally, and what's that going to give you other people, the people that matter to you? Because if we are going for a goal that will take us away from people we love, the subconscious will not support you. It knows that's not good for you. All right, so you have to work out how you're going to communicate to yourself that your family and your friends and your health and your well-being are all going to be okay while you go for those things. So checking in with yourself, is your goal for you, and is it good for you and your family, good for your business, is it good for your community, is it good for your country, is it good for the world? If you want to get really big scale, depends where you're ready to think and feel. But if it's not going to have a congruent impact on everything that matters to you, the likelihood is you won't act on it. And so it's not a true outcome that you're bought into. Loretta, you put, how do we delete old beliefs? The first thing is to become aware of them. So so you've got a belief. So can you think of a belief that you know, an old belief that you'd like to delete? So if you can share that with me, because everybody will have their own unique way of deleting beliefs. But my first one is to be aware of it. Check out if it's true. How do I know that? Where did that belief come from? But it's actually working out, because sometimes we've got beliefs that they absolutely were true 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So, it's not okay to go out in the dark. Might have been what you're told as 5-year-old, but now you're 35-year-old. It's okay to go out in the dark. After 4 o'clock in the winter, we do need to go out at dark in the UK here. So I think the most important thing is to identify the belief. If you can share it, I'll do what I can on the call today. But it's actually identify it first and foremost, and then you can question it. And then once you've questioned it, you can ask yourself, what would you like to have happen? And then you can choose what the new belief is that you want to have. What's the new belief that you want to, and then collect the evidence of what that new belief, that the evidence you've got in life that says that actually that belief's true. that that is possible. So, for example, one of my beliefs that I often have about money and building my business is that I don't have enough time. If I want to be there for my family, it's going to take me, take up too much time to be successful. That was a belief I caught myself with at the end of last year, in fact, was that to be successful, you end up being stressed. And to be successful, you take yourself away from your family. And I had to, that belief was stopping me from becoming as successful as I could be, and I wanted to be. So I had to go, actually, is that belief, is that rule, is that going to serve me? Is that going to help me? And so I made a conscious decision that I can have success without stress. And that was my new belief. And then I started exploring, so what kind of success is that success? And without stress, that's like what? And so it came back to planning and time management and decision making, as I'm not surprised at all. But I had to get rid of that belief, and then I had to look at what needed to happen. So I had to make sure that my weekly plans had time for my health. So I had my physical training, that I had time to cook, that I had time to be with my family, because that was the importance. And then I had to work out what time I had left, and that's what I was going to dedicate to the business. And I had to make it successful within that time frame. So that's how I worked out that belief. At the beginning of the call, I think I mentioned that I decided to work more hours. But I also, because I believe success wasn't possible without stress, over the years, I've limited my diary to about 38, 40 weeks a year for coaching. And what I'd realized when I reevaluated it with my coach this morning was that actually, because I've got all these tools now and I do take care of myself, I can do 44 weeks of the year, because I'm not sort of burning out and then needing a break to recuperate, because I take care of myself every day. I have breaks every day. I eat well every day. I'm doing things on a daily basis. So my belief can change because my behaviors change on a day-to-day basis. So I think, in answer to your question, Loretta, how do you delete old beliefs? Is first become aware of them, decide what new belief you want to have, and then work out what is the step-by-step process. How do you need to be? I couldn't have just deleted that belief completely last year straight away without working out how I was going to start taking care of myself better, because it's without the stress was the most important part of it. Daryl, you put, I don't need lots of new programs and time management methods from other gurus. I just need to revisit the work I've done with you and be more of myself at my best. It's a bit of a relief, to be honest, and less pressure. Fabulous. And I can't wait to get the final. We've got the final program today, so I look forward to seeing the outcomes from that. Loretta, you've got fear of making mistakes handling horses. The main thing I'd do, go back to the top of the confidence model and look at what's working in the focus on strengths. Is when you are handling horses at your best, that's like what? And how do you need to be, and what kind of resource or support might you make? You know, that fear of making mistakes, it is going back to that learning at your best. Your horse is going to give you feedback of what's working, what's not working. It's about you being able to listen to your horse, listen to yourself, to ask yourself questions, and be aware of the assumptions you're making. So, you know, your horse might do a certain behavior and you'll make up a story about it. And you have a choice. You can make up a story that puts you as the victim, that you're doing something wrong. You could make up a story that makes the horse wrong and go, it's being angry, it's doing whatever. Or you can simply go, I've done this, and that's the response. And you have to then, that's how we do it when coaching, is I ask a question, I get a response from a client, and I'm calibrating all the time. Is this question working for this client? Are they gaining more insights? So you have to be clear what outcome you want with you and your horse. You know, if it was just the way you'd like it to be, it'd be like what? Then you can go, is this that I'm doing taking me closer towards that part? Which brings me on to the N, which is the next part. No, what have we just done? Confidence, develop solutions. E, embrace learning, we've done that. N, notice change. So noticing change is the most important thing, and it's the bit I brought into my own. I was writing about it this year, and so I brought it into my own map of the world this year. And one of the things that happens with life is we have this big outcome. We are where we are now, and we only celebrate when we get there. So it's really important. Hi, Chris, lovely to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. Is to actually work out where you want to be, and every small change that gets you there. So if you have an ideal, Loretta, of how you want things to be with your horses, you get the picture, you spend some time really being clear about what would be happening if it was just the way you'd like it to be. You work out where you are now, and then every time you see a bit of progress. So let's say, for example, you want to be calmer with your horses, you want to be less fearful. maybe you'd measure it by how much time you spend with them and you're calm before you get irritable or frustrated or scared or whatever's happening. And you might measure that actually I stayed calmer for 6 minutes a day, whereas yesterday it was only 4 minutes. So find ways of measuring the changes. Now, the work that I do with people with their critic is often it's an emotional driver. That's why the metaphor world is so powerful. So I had one lady that came into me, and at the beginning of the 90-minute session, she said, I feel like a headless chicken. And by the time that she finished, she said she felt like a sleek eagle. So there she can physically see, hear, feel, experience the change that's happened. She's got a representation that change has happened. Headless chicken to sleek eagle is quite obvious. You can imagine the differences, can't you? And so it's about celebrating. So notice change, but more importantly, celebrate it. And I talk a lot more about this on What's Working Wednesdays. And last week, What's Working Wednesday, if you haven't seen it, it's on the page. It talks about the importance of celebrating change. But there's a physical thing that happens that when you go, yay, that's better. Actually, physically, when we're unhappy with something, we go, and we grunt a lot. I'm not going to go into that in loads of detail because I've done a whole video on that last week. But you really need to physically celebrate your change. You need to have a way of measuring change. And that's why working with coaches, why having other people help you, is because they'll probably notice change quicker than you will. Especially if you ask them to notice what's working. You ask them to tell you what is going well. Okay, so get them to actually notice the change that's going on, but not noticing like when it's going wrong, notice when it's going well. And then when it is, have fun, have ways of celebrating, whether you go like that. For me, I had to change it so it wasn't a bar of chocolate or a glass of champagne, because I realised that wasn't a very healthy way of celebrating, especially when I've got so much more to celebrate now. So I'm looking for healthier ways to celebrate, and so a hug or time with friends and families, big smiles, thumbs up. It's something simple, but you do have to notice and celebrate the change that's happening. Confidence, life is an iteration. It's bit by bit getting towards where you want to get to. And the more you can notice every time you get progress being made, the more you can update your system, the more that these old beliefs that don't serve you start to wash away. And because they're being overtaken by everything that's going really well that you're celebrating as you go through. So that's the N for confidence, notice change. C is then create a plan. So once you've got all of that information, you can create a plan. So this is much more about talking about when are you going to do it, who's going to do it, how you're going to do it. So we start looking at the do, delegate, or ditch, where you're actually looking what you're going to do more of yourself, what you're going to delegate to other people, and what, you know, might have a list. Maybe there's a list of beliefs you need to ditch, or a list of tasks you need to ditch. Maybe there's just a list of thoughts you need to ditch. But then the creating a plan is much more, now it's sort of compartmentalizing, you know, in your week, in your day, in your year. So there's some stuff that Mark and I really want to do to the house, and actually what we've got, that's a 2019 project. It's a big project. We've parked that. So now I don't need to think about it. I don't have to give myself a hard time because it's not happening. I've got a diary note to say I want to address it again next January. Done, dusted. So create a plan means you're actually physically putting it into your system, whether it's your diary, your online program, you know, online calendars, whatever you're doing, but you're now actually saying, right, this is when I'm going to do it. So a great question is, once you've done all this work, is you go, okay, so what's the one thing you have to do every day for the next 7 days? And I'll leave you those thoughts as well. Those are, you want to feel like a sleek eagle, please inbox me, Loretta, if you're interested. I do three 30-minute calls. I'm more than happy to. I've got 3, I think, left for January. So pop in a note and we can book in a free 30-minute call. Not a problem at all. So where we're on to now, I've lost my track now. So we've done create a plan. E, and then E is engage with feedback. When you've done all that work, that is when you are in a good, solid place to say to people, now tell me what you think is not working. What do you think? Ask them what is working first, what's not working, and what needs to work better. Because when you've got clarity of what you want, you've got ability to ask questions. If you ask people for feedback and they go, oh, well, Cheryl, for example, someone told me off for having pictures and said it's very distracting. And my thing is that I actually went back to that person and said, okay, so what worked about the video? What did you get from the video? Because the only thing they gave me feedback is that pictures in the background are distracting. So it's not helpful to me. It's not useful. I do know that things in the background can be distracting. But I also know that if I'm delivering material that's really interesting and the people really want it, they're hooked on what I'm saying. They're listening to my voice. They don't care about what's in the background either. and the time it takes me to take that all down, which I do sometimes, depending on what video I'm doing, if I take it all down to clear up the space for everybody, to make it so it's a really sort of clear training space, it does take a lot of time out of my day, and I've got to make a priority. And today I made the priority that I wanted to invest in my own personal coaching with my coaches in Melbourne. So obviously we're on time differences, and I wanted to make sure I had breakfast before I started talking to you, and so that became not the priority. So when it comes to feedback, you really do need to be able to, you have to know what you want, you have to know what you're working towards, you need to know how you need to be, you need to have a solid foundation of your strengths and what works for you. You've got to be okay with just having a moment and going, okay, you know, that's information. What am I going to do with it? What works about that information? And for me, if someone gives me feedback and I can't ask them more questions, so okay, so where does that come from? What was happening for you at that time? Because I need to separate out, is this just their map of the world, or is this something that's going to work for me? And the way I work with feedback, and I will say this to you, is I listen to all feedback and I record it, as in I write it down, or I put it on a diary note. And if it doesn't sit well with me, I think, well, actually, that's how I work best. That's what I'm going to do. Then I carry on doing it. If what works best for me is to leave the pictures up sometimes, then that's what I'll do. However, if 10 or more people who I really like, who I really want to work well with, people who I want to get the maximum out of my videos, if 10 or more people say to me, Cheryl, those pictures are really distracting me, then because they are people who matter to my success and happiness, I'll listen to them and I'll take the pictures down. Because I remember my trainer saying once is that you may not consider yourself to be rude, but if 10 members of your staff say you are rude, you're rude. So whilst I might consider them not a distraction, it's one person saying that to me doesn't make a big difference. But if 10 people, and those people are people who I want to be able to engage with what I'm saying, I want them to really connect with what I'm saying, then I have to listen to that. So it's about looking for patterns. With feedback, I've seen so many people who stop making sales calls because one person said, oh, you're too salesy, or one person said, oh, don't be so pushy. And I was guilty of this. About 3 or 4 years ago, I stopped asking for business because I was told by 1 or 2 people, and I was forgetting the 250 people I'd helped already who were really glad that I stood up and said, I can help you with that. So with feedback, 1, ask questions to be able to understand where the feedback's coming back. Keep a record of it and really act and respond on patterns, not on one-off bits of feedback. Know yourself well so that you know you can resonate with it, because what can happen is it can hit a nerve, and it's because subconsciously it's something you wish you were better at. So what used to happen for me is people would pull me up for waffling and I'm not being very concise and wasn't getting to the point. Whereas now I know, I've been on here an hour, I know it's good quality, I know I'm giving you loads of information that's going to really help you. And this is really my Kickstarter for January. And as we go into the year, they'll become bite-sized chunks because I can refer you back to these master training videos. You can go and watch an hour video with all the information in. So you have to know why you're doing what you're doing, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Otherwise, when people criticize you, if you've got a sensitivity to it, it's something you don't like about yourself that you haven't done something about, it will hit you hard. Whereas if it's something you know about you, and you know when it's a strength and you know when it's not, then you can do something about it. This is my page, all right? This is step-by-step listings page. I can choose to do it for as long as I want to do it. I come on and I can give my time. Sometimes I can do 10 minutes and sometimes I can do longer. But because you guys are on and you're asking questions, I've been engaging with it. So therefore, so I'm just going to quickly recap then the confidence process, 10 steps. I will type it up and pop it in the comment box as well. So C is for clarity, and that's about really listening to yourself, knowing what you want, thinking about where your attention is, keeping yourself out of drama, and knowing that the story you're telling yourself and other people is coming from a place of love, not fear. You have to know your outcome, know what you want rather than what you don't want. You need to get your needs met. You need to think about the environment and where you need to be and how you need things to be. How do you need to be? What kind of resourceful support do you need? You need to think about focusing on strengths and build up models, lots of different models of how you do you, so that you have no doubt about yourself. You understand what works about you. You also know when that will annoy other people. Know your strengths, know when it's like to be criticised, and be okay with that. Not everybody will like you all of the time. But your strength and your way and your new way matter, and the world needs you to show up as the whole of you, not this adapted version that you keep on trying to be to please other people. I for interval, be okay with quiet. Allow information to land and process. D, develop solutions with your strengths in mind. So actually know all that stuff about you, and then you can develop a solution that you buy into, that you believe, that works for you. And I've got to spell confidence now. E, embed and embrace learning. So ask questions like, what do you know now? When things go wrong, what's it taught you? Learn quickly from a mistake so you can move on. And rather than seeing it as a mistake, I know Loretta said about making mistakes with your horse, it's just an opportunity to learn. None of us can do anything. If I was watching our granddaughter on a video last night trying to learn to roll over, and she's like trying to get her leg over on the video, it's like this, and I'm thinking that's exactly how we learn to walk, how we learn. It's like you keep trying. It's all a bit messy sometimes. So it's actually, embed the learning, embrace the learning. Just know that very few of us get to anywhere in a very sleek, the sleek eagle is a work in progress. You get there. But the eagle comes out all fluffy out of its shell. It's not particularly pretty, is it? And then it sort of then has to flap and it has to learn. It doesn't become a sleek eagle overnight. It is something that is an iterative process of keep trying things out, learning, try, learn. But if you embed the learning, it happens faster. Notice change. When change is happening, notice it, celebrate it, embrace it. When you've noticed a change, create a plan. Now you've got, because what can happen is you can stay on track with an old plan and you haven't noticed things have changed, and then you get disappointed because it doesn't get you the results. And it's because there had been some learning, but you didn't pay attention to it, you didn't celebrate the change, and you didn't update your plan. You need to adapt your plan on a regular basis and keep your plan up to date with what it is you're going for. And then when you've got a clear plan and you know what you want, you know what works for you, you have a solution that's measured, and you're embracing and embedding that learning, that's when you can start to engage with feedback from other people. So I hope that's been of use to you today. You put Loretta, thanks for doing this, so interesting, off to get very wet with horses, fab. Leslie Hollyoak, thank you for introducing me to Cheryl, brilliant. Lovely to hear from you all today. Please put some comments below. If you're watching the video on replay, I would like to know now what's worked about the video, what's not worked about the video, and what needs the videos to work better. And if the pictures really annoy you, let me know and I'll take them down. If the length's bothering you, let me know. And but I'll tell you what, I could have done this as a 10-part video and I could take 10 weeks to tell you about it, or I could take an hour and tell you about the 10 steps right here, right now. If you want more information about all of this, then do check out my book, managercritic.com, where I do talk about the confidence process in there as well, and also all the questions you can ask yourself to gain that clarity of what works for you and what you want. Love you all loads. Have a fantastic week, and I'll be back on What's Working Wednesday on Wednesday, obviously. Speak to you soon.